Are you, Mark? I'm going live.
Yeah, I see. Yep, here. We're good. You're live everywhere.
Welcome, everyone, to the sparkling conversations of, it's Friday. Oh my gosh, time is going by so quickly. This is the conversation about getting along with ourselves. And it is inspired by the summit's theme of health and wellness. I want to welcome you and mention that you can join the watch party here at theconversation.cc. You can also view it live streaming on EarthStock Summit on Facebook and YouTube, Regen Media TV, and you can go to the virtual world where over 80 movies as well can be watched. So, how can we get along better with ourselves, both psychologically and physically? In these unfamiliar and challenging times, we need to find new ways to support our bodies and our minds. I'm going to have Mary Thorpe be listening in to our conversation. We'll also have Lisa Ayres, who's been watching throughout the week. Mary Thorpe is one of my After Chat and Humanity Rising collaborators, and she will join us at 10:15 in Mountain Time to summarize the discussion and suggest questions for the panelists and the audience to talk about in the afterglow after the broadcast is over. I want to start us off by an introduction of the panelists. The first of our panelists is Maureen Edwardson. She's a futurist and pioneer. She originated the Inner Resonance Technologies, IRT. She and I drove south from BC, Canada to be here in Crestone for this event. Maureen, please tell our audience about yourself. You'll need to activate your mic. There you go.
So here I am. And so thank you so much, Shannon, and everyone here. I'm just feeling really honored to be part of this esteemed panel. And I'm really grateful to be here on the ground in Crestone, one of my homes away from home for many years, since 1994. So it's wonderful and refreshing to be back after many years. And the energy here is really high intensity. We've had the full moon. And so that really does activate people's own internal unresolved issues. And I'm no exception. No one is an exception to that, because the theme is getting along with ourselves. And so it's a great a gift to be triggered, because that is where we can get along with ourselves better, as Michael DiMartino keeps reiterating in a phrase that I love, is radical responsibility. And that's basically an ability to respond. So what I teach helps people, supports people in supporting themselves, in clearing and recognizing and taking responsibility for their own triggers. And the joy of what I bring to the table, or bring to the party, if you will, is very, very simple, non-invasive protocol that allows, when we get triggered, to bump it up into our superconscious spiritual self to get taken care of with the overwhelm, so that we can then be present for ourselves and then be present for others. Simple. And it is getting easier, it is getting simpler. And with tools that are now getting downloaded, the next level of accessing our superconscious spiritual aspects of ourselves, then the struggle is coming into a greater ease and gentleness and fast track. So that's what my work IRT represents, is a fast track. And I'll be presenting from Blazing Mountain today at 1 to 1:30, 1 to 2:30, but I don't believe that will be broadcast, but it will be available for viewing later.
For
So thank you so much,
legacy.
Shannon, for inviting me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for being
Yes.
here. And next, I'm going to go to Basha Alexander. She's a co-founder of BioBalia Institute and Tree Whispering. Basha has dedicated her life to restoring the health of nature and upshifting human thinking. She co-creates with Dr. Jim Conroy, who joined our panel yesterday. Basha, please tell us something about what you do. Oh, activate your mic.
Here we go. Yes. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here. I believe I bring a little different angle to this idea of inner health. Oh, by the way, biobalia means biology in balance, the whole greater than the sum of its parts. And I like to think of myself as a champion of people learning to partner with nature. And my website and my YouTube channel are both called Partner with Nature. So I know that the topic today is getting along with ourselves, and that is implying inner health, inner well-being. But I believe that that's actually incomplete because the focus is all too often on people's themselves, just within themselves. And we live in communities. We live with other people. And what I say is that we live with other beings, the nature beings, so that we can find that kind of inner peace and well-being that we need within ourselves and with the nature beings. So that's why I believe I bring a little different a different point of view to this talk. And if I could just share my secret, my secret dream or my secret wish has always been, since we began this work, gosh, 23 or 4 years ago, that that working with and communicating with trees and plants would bring inner peace and inner health to people, but would also be a template for people to have a new kind of relationship with other people that would be peaceful and healthy, and that would move us all toward a livable planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Basha. Your viewpoint is very important, and I thank you so much for being here. Next, I'm going to go to David Somak. He's a retired psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. He co-created the European Health Futures Forum, and he's been deeply involved in shaping the European health ecosystem and is dedicated to supporting change within it. David, I heard you retired. How's that going for you?
Busy, which I suppose it should be. I'm still alive, still kicking. So yeah, I think that I was very pleased to follow Basia because I think we have several things in common. One is that I think I also bring a slightly different angle to things. Firstly, because I'm a European, and I think that whatever else we say, European culture is different from over there. I think that, and so, there was that very who said about two nations separated by a common language or something like that. But the But certainly, for example, our health system is crucially different because we have this concept of universal health coverage, which for some Americans is anathema. It's seen as communism or something. Whereas I think that people are aspiring to change. I was asked by an academic in Harvard recently, could I write something about our perspective belonging to an organization that called Wellbeing Economy Alliance, which is looks to changing the model of economics. And he said, but remember, you're writing for an American audience, so just be careful how you phrase it. And I was pretty miffed by that. But I understand his point of view, but at the same time, it's I think you have to be honest about what the picture is and how you see things. So, but I do feel I'm a bit like someone from another planet talking to this group. And you can take it or leave it. My observations may or may not be accurate. But
well, David, I really appreciate your perspective because it is from kind of the outside. And I'm a Canadian. So I absolutely understand the benefits of universal health care. And I'm hoping that the United States gets the same kind of benefits and everyone in the world. So thank you so much. We're going to segue now over to Hope Fitzgerald. She's a dedicated spiritual guide and energy healer. She introduced the infinity wave to the world. She guides and channels during a weekly Zoom meeting that I very much enjoyed participating in. Thank you, Hope. Please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, and thank you, Shannon, and lovely to meet the other panelists. With whom I agree wholeheartedly. I would say that I have two kind of tools in my toolbox that I like to share. One is the infinity wave, which is an energetic, it's an idea, it's a geometry, it's a figure eight made of flowing water that has 1,001 uses. It's like one of those knives, Ginzo knives or whatever. It has 1,001 uses. Primarily, first off, is to try to balance the ability for people to accept love and compassion as well as give it. Most of us are really good at giving. Not so many of us have that place where we can receive an equal stance. The figure eight made of flowing water, within that flowing water is this very high frequency of love and compassion. And it seems like a strange thing, but I'm telling you, it works. And I get emails every day about how it can shift reality in a moment. We call it the cosmic easy button because it's just working with a malleable reality, which we're really in, even though it doesn't look that way. So the infinity wave is very good at helping to restore that love and compassion within ourselves, which is number one. And then we move out from there. And we move into communication with nature, with rocks and plants and trees and the sun and the moon, and it can go on and on forever. The second tool in my toolbox is that I've been a dowser for over 30 years. So I regularly use dowsing to communicate with the natural world and to establish a conversation. And it is incredible how responsive they are, and how we get invited into these realms if we approach them appropriately. And so those are the two things that lead to self-care from my end.
Well, thank you so much, Hope. I am so grateful to have all of us as part of this conversation. We come from a diversity of backgrounds, and I believe that because of the diversity of the entirety of the human species, each one of us is different. We need to have different tools and processes in order to better understand ourselves and to support ourselves in Well, and I'm going to invite my tech people to bring all of us into the conversation now, because I want us all to talk about how well, first off, how we can cultivate a deeper relationship within ourselves to better navigate these challenging times. And so I'm going to invite Basha to come in first. And what do you think?
Oh, the long and winding road of my own life. That's because I have used so many approaches to center, learn to become more confident. There's been so many things I've done, and I appreciate everything that everyone has said, because there are so many paths to that kind of inner peace. The 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 thing that, if I really would love to tell a story here, the thing that really capped it for me, again, over many years of self-help kinds of things. In the fairly early days of this work, Dr. Jim Conroy, my partner, and I were at a client's place out on the West Coast in the Bay Area, and we were working with immense 350-year-old coastal live oaks. And just to try to shorten the story a bit, I went up to this one particular one at this client's property, and I asked permission, may I do some healing work with you? And the response I got was, no, go away. I'm meditating. And okay. So I did. But then Dr. Jim came along shortly thereafter to do his healing work. And he's, very business-like, kind of doctor-like, even though he's a PhD in plant pathology. And he did get permission, and he worked with this tree. And then when I returned to it, I said, okay, do I have permission? And the response was almost meek, and the response was yes, yes, let's talk. And so I ended up receiving a tremendous bit of information about this tree's history and this tree's location. And one of the things that the tree explained to me was that it was positioned originally by a Native American chief to be positioned over a spring, a little river underground and a spring. And so I had been in that inner quiet in order to do this communication, and I thanked the tree, but I still had that self-doubt. I still wondered, gee, did I make all this up? There's that part of us that doesn't trust entirely. And then when I went to tell this story to the property owner, she said, oh, yeah, of course. This whole area is riddled with little springs and little underground rivers. Of course. So that was the most tremendous moment to me to really trust myself and to trust the messages that I get. And isn't trust an important part of health, of personal health and well-being? So in doing that experience with nature, I got such affirmation for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. The trusting oneself is key, I think. Thank you so much for that story. I imagine communicating with 350-year-old trees.
Oh, yeah. And it said a lot more than that, too.
and what their inner story is. And thank you so much. I'm going to go to Maureen next and ask her how we can cultivate a deeper relationship with ourselves to better navigate these challenging times.
Thank you, Shannon. And yes, we are wanting to remember the truth of our oneness, that we are really not separate from anything or anyone else. So the tree or another person or a situation is always a part of who we are. And that relationship with ourselves and our own response or reactivity to the world is where the edge of our evolution, I believe, in our remembrance of our oneness. And so whatever our approach is, whatever our modality is, it's all the unique diversity in the oneness that is essential for us to be in relationship with our own self, because if we're not aligned and harmonized and in balance of ourselves, then we are projecting unresolved misperceptions onto the world and getting a different feedback system that's hoping to be a corrective tool. So once we really take that ability to respond and responsibility and clear our own static and the all of the resistance that we have from all of the pain and the trauma, and not only ourselves, but the empathy we have and the sensitivity we have to all of what's going on in the world does influence us. So to stay centered, to stay in our own truth, and to be able to trust ourselves and have a clear discernment, I believe it's essential to continuously clear the static that we have from within and all around us, so that we can be that center in the storm and be an influence of peace, as we can be centered in grounded and connected in that molecule of community, because Bruce Lipton teaches that we're all a community of cells. Each one of us is a cell in the greater body of humanity and nature itself. There is no separation, and Jesus taught that as well. So the more that we judge, the more that we judge ourselves, the more that we are in fear, the more that we are just not at peace, then we're not able to be that place of influence, of rippling out. Because the truth is, the definition of resonance in physics is that there is a range of frequencies that is harmonically aligned within a range, and it always trains up, always. So if there's something that's wiggling down here that is putting you off track or off balance, or life is doing this, then it's our responsibility, our relationship with ourselves, to take that and shift it. And fortunately, as I say, IRT is a tool that can rapidly bring us back in a clear space, free of whatever was wiggling, so that we can now have an extended range, that we have capacity to hold space for others in that beautiful place of compassion and understanding from our hearts.
Thank you so much, Maureen. I really appreciate your IRT, and the fact that Bruce Lipton endorses it, and that you're a friend of his is very, very intriguing. And I want to move to David. And, I'm going to tweak the question a little bit for you, David, because of your background and the powers that be, who are so learned in our Western society, how do they support us cultivating a deeper relationship with ourselves, or do they?
I don't know who the powers that be are.
The medical community.
Well, I'm not interested in the medical community, frankly, in the sense that I respect what they do, but I think they are trapped in a silo. In other words, quite unlike the speakers we've just heard, I don't believe that the medical community really recognizes the nature of the health ecosystem and the fact that we are all connected, that in fact, for good health, I think people have to recognize how in society everything connects with everything else, and that includes the planet and our environment. I think there's some people are starting to think about that. But the medical system that we have is based on a 19th century model, which is very authoritarian and where it is very hierarchical. And I think that was the basis really of my organization, our organization, European Health Futures Forum, starting because after working in quality assurance and improvement in health, we realize that this isn't enough. You have to look wider in order to help to bring about change. Now, what I would say is that as a result of approaching that, we're beginning to see how, in fact, there are many systems that are interlocked. And take the economic system. And the powers that be really are quite negative ones, which are in fact really manipulating society in order to ensure that a few people get very wealthy and the rest, in fact, the sheep are being really brainwashed into accepting a reality which isn't, that material things are the thing we should care about, that you focus on yourself, but not in the kind of wholesome way that people are talking about, but really being self-centered and selfish because all that matters is that you are better off than someone else, and caring for people has been lost. Of course, it was never, strictly speaking, within the economic model, except way back when there was the notion of social good. And it's really quite frightening that this is being lost in modern society. So I don't bring tools other than trying to understand things. Remember also that a gentle reminder about myself. Of course, I spent years working with individuals, looking at their pain and how you might help a person to become more whole. I think the philosophy of psychoanalysis, although I'm a kind of renegade in the sense that I've stepped out of the psychoanalytic world, but I learned a lot from it and respect it. It is about helping people to integrate, to bring the parts of themselves together. But there's another aspect of that, really, which is recognizing that living is painful. And we can't simply dismiss it and say that it's a bit like my analyst himself used to say, if you think you're absolutely right about something, then you know you're wrong. In other words, you have to have some self-doubt. But of course, it's, life is messy and complicated. I do utterly agree with what people are saying earlier about trust. But this is about trusting your instinct. I think it's about respecting your instinct. This is, of course, psychoanalysts talk about the unconscious. It is that notion of having a healthy trust in your instinct, at least, and yet still questioning. It's all about balance, isn't it?
It is all about balance. Well said, sir. And you touched on a lot of different aspects. And I am so glad that you are here today. You do anchor us in a reality that we need to navigate individually and collectively. And we're making it. It just sometimes doesn't seem that way, but we need to trust. And I thank you so much. And hope. From your perspective, how can we cultivate a deeper relationship with ourselves to better navigate these challenging times?
Well, that is the whole reason that the Infinity Wave arrived in the series of visions that came to me in 2010. And through learning about this wave, what I was told was that it was meant to help us remain in a flow state. and so that what we tend to do is when great change is upon us, or even little change, we freeze up. We're like, wait, don't rock the boat. I'm in my cave. I'm happy here. I don't want to leave. We freeze. And what if we could drop that resistance? What if we could instead go into a flow state and go along, surf the tide, swim with the river, and allow it, trusting is a huge part, to land us on the shore where we are supposed to be next. So this is based on a series of evolutionary steps as originally taught to me at the community of Findhorn, where I was learning about Teilhard de Chardin and his theory of evolution. And so he would call these junctures, these tight junctures, peduncles. They're peduncle in French, but we the lovely word peduncle. But we go through these series of peduncles, and if we can learn to flow through them, their growth, there's pain in them, there's all kinds of stuff, but remembering it's for our highest good, then we can arrive on the other shore, having grown, having expanded our trust in ourselves, because now we've had an experience, so we can say, look at that, look what I came through, look where I am now, and that gives us more of a substantive place for the next one, because there's always going to be another peduncle. So when the wave arrived, our waves that were hitting us were tiny. Obviously, over the last 14 years, they have grown to be substantial. And I don't think we're done with them. So what's beautiful is that the community around the world that are now waving are finding that they're easing through their peduncles more graciously, easily, and elegantly.
Oh, I love that, Hope. And I have really appreciated the infinity wave, and you bring in the next area that I want to talk about are the different tools. And thank you so much for bringing your tool. And so I know someone else who has an amazing tool, and I'd like Maureen to talk more deeply about her tool. And then Baja and David. But first, Maureen, talk about your inner resonance technology and basically how does it help us?
Thank you so much, Shannon. And thank you, Hope. We are on the same page. I totally resonate with your infinity wave and the purpose and the results and the elegance and the simplicity and the speed, because that's what IRT also represents. And IRT is really basically a simple formula of questions that are all predisposed to yes, saying yes to our higher self, our quantum spiritual reality, where there is no time, where everything is interconnected and everything is available for us right here now. And so because of that, the questions that are all predisposed to yes, very simple questions that then give permission and catalyze and activate flow state and freedom of all the static and the resistance instantly. So it's a fast track in the same way that the infinity wave is. I love that. And it represents the core of our spiritual self as we wake up and remember who we truly are. And the body itself is a quantum supercomputer that is an instant responder to infinite consciousness. And so what's the problem here? The problem is all of the programming, all the conditioning, all the unresolved experiences that sit in our field going, taking us out, because the truth is the memory, as Bruce Lipton says, we're all out of our minds because the mind is a field all around us, and that's where the signals live and the unresolved memory lives, so that then gets triggered. And so then every time we get triggered, it's an opportunity not just to shift instantly what's underneath that trigger, everything associated and connected with it from all times and all places, because it's all here now. It also allows opportunity for any and all unresolved stuff sitting in our background to hop on, and piggyback onto that. And as we remember the wholeness of who we truly are, the infinite self, then everything else just dissolves automatically, because it has no further relevance, no need to keep poking at us, and no need to drag it forward. So it brings us into presence in a similar way. I understand it. Please correct me if I'm wrong, that the infinity wave also does. It's a very fast track of a quantum technique that brings presence, and not only brings presence like meditation will do and mindfulness, but this IRT is more like a mindlessness. I'm starting a mindless movement, because we get to drop right into the nothingness and allow, it's because there's nothing to do, nothing to fix, nothing to change. We bump it up into the quantum reality of our higher self that knows everything, and just instantly neutralizes and dissolves all that stuff, so that we can then be present for ourselves, trust ourselves, and then trust others, and be discerning of how we then shine our light and be who we are. Just like Michelangelo's David, Michelangelo just cleared all of the matrix of the marble, so because David was already in there, and like us, we're already in there. So we just need to clear what's not us. It's very simple. It's a deprogramming. IRT is a deprogramming technique, so that we can just be comfortable in our own skins, and be compassionate, be the love, be the spiritual being that we are, and then just shine. And that then automatically entrains everybody around us that's ready. Oh, nothing to do.
I love that.
There we go.
Maureen.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you so much.
Oh, if I can just say
tools.
one more thing.
Oh, sure.
The tool, similar to the infinity wave, the end result of IRT is a chemistry of wholeness on a whole new level, and the frequency of greater freedom. And you get to anchor that in, because the brain works in associative conditions. So when you're experiencing that, you get to put the tongue on the roof of your mouth, or hand on your heart, or wiggle your ear, whatever you want to do. A physical, just like the infinity wave, it's a symbol, and it's an access point of flow and oneness and freedom. So I just wanted to say that. So that's an instant access on a daily basis to keep yourself clearing. So thank you for letting me interrupt back.
Oh, absolutely, Maureen. I love that this format of conversation allows us to go into our own deep resources to find what is true for us in ourselves, rather than a prepared presentation. This I think dives deeply into who each of us is. And now I want to go to Basha, and let me restate the question for you. What are the effective tools and practices that you have used, that you use and that are helpful in supporting mental and physical well-being?
Mm-hmm. There's so much I want to comment on here. Absolutely. So I just want to pick up quickly on what David said about the medical world and separation, because in that long and winding road of my life, I've assembled a lot of ideas. I've synthesized a lot of ideas, and one of them is that separation is old paradigm. And what we're moving toward is what we call a paradigm of partnership. So that concept, that idea whose time has come, is probably the most fundamental tool of all, because when we're coming from partnership, there's a kind of equality there. It's not hierarchical. It's not arrogant, because people are not assuming. When we work with trees and plants, we don't assume we know best. And we teach people the importance of asking questions, which is how I have to now come to something that Maureen said about a formula of questions. So one of the inspirations for our work with trees and plants came out of a human healing system called the Body Talk system. And I highly recommend this system because, well, just to make a contrast, so many people and systems, when they have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. In other words, everything has to fit into the system of what that person is trained in. And the beauty of the Body Talk system is that it doesn't, the practitioner does not assume that they know anything. It's right there in the name. We're asking the body. And we were trained in that system originally, and then Dr. Jim and I went off and developed the work with plants. And with plants, it's even more important to ask questions because they don't have mouths and voices to answer you with. You have to be so neutral and peaceful and calm inside, which is healthy for oneself. To receive the answers and to know that, and to have the confidence to know I'm not making this up. This is what is coming truly to me from this other living being in my collaboration with this other living being. So, so back again to that notion of questions, that in tree whispering, one of the things we teach is people to ask the tree, well, what is your life like? What is your health like? Well, my other little note, yes, it's all about presence, and it's all about collaborating with one's own higher self to be in touch with that other being. And of course, one of my favorite sages in the world, I'll echo what someone else said, is that oh, I think it was Maureen who said about we have to not rely on what we know already. Well, one of my favorite sages is Yoda, who said we have to unlearn what we have learned. So that all to me comes back around to humility, to asking questions, and then back all the way to what Hope said, which is to be in that flow, to be connected with a higher source, and to be in the flow of truth. Okay, so tools, well, our tools are tree whispering, and I'm proud to announce right here and now is that we are establishing an advanced degree program that we call Collaborative Ecological Healing with Paradigm Shifting.
Wow.
So stay tuned, because the 24 years of our work will all be in essence in this work, because you can't collaboratively heal the ecology, the body of Earth, without being in a different mindset. And that is what we call paradigm jumping. It's jumping into not just new thoughts and ideas, but a whole new context, a whole new container. And one of those fundamental containers is partnership versus the old paradigm of separation, domination, hierarchy, control, all of that. So stay tuned, because this will be available soon, and all of our tools are really based on that kind of humble collaboration.
Well, thank you so much, Basha, and to have it be announced here first, and I do wonder about how much growth we have each experienced because of our interaction with Humanity Rising and the opportunities that have been unfolded because of our association with it. I know my life has completely changed because of that collaboration. So not to get caught up on Humanity Rising, and it's my favorite thing to talk about. But I do want to ask David, Basha was talking about inner peace and quiet so that you can hear the plants talk to you. And it seems, David, you must have some effective tools and practices that you've found helpful in supporting mental and physical well-being. What have you got to say, sir?
I think that what I would say is that I want to be disruptive at this point.
Oh, good. I love that.
And say, I think when I prefaced my remarks earlier about being an outsider or someone from a different planet, I think that the culture of having tools and things is something that dominates a particular kind of society where things can be fixed. I think the problem is that, and of course, I'm not to knock it, and say so you shouldn't. But the truth is, it's a bit like it's a curious thing. One of the downsides of modern medicine, for example, is that because they've had so many advances in technology, people actually have stopped thinking about looking after themselves, because the idea is you just use your body how you wish, and then when it goes wrong, it's like taking your car into the garage, to get it fixed. You go along to the doctor, they fix it, and then you go again. So you don't have any responsibility for what you're doing to your body because you're so busy earning money or doing whatever you do. And what that's about is going back to older ways where people actually did respect their bodies because they needed to. And the notion of health was not about some all-seeing physician, priest physician, who tells you how to make things right, but actually that you had a common understanding of how to look after things. And I think that's a very fundamental thing that was around that's been lost somehow, but can be brought back. So for me, in thinking about tools, it's more about how to help to change society. It sounds grand, but the view is, I think, for some of us, that working collectively is the only way to bring about societal change. If you care about things like social justice. See, that's why I want to be disruptive, because in a way you could say the group of us here are so privileged, and it's a kind of echo chamber of people who understand what we're talking about and have different ways of making ourselves more whole. I spent 1,000 hours on the psychoanalytic couch, and mind you, it was a training as well, and I benefited from it. But and equally, I must say, as an anecdote, I really enjoyed a session I had with some friends where someone had been taught shamanic drumming, and the exercise we did was this guy did the drumming and encouraged us to let our minds free and go down to the underworld. And in the underworld, you meet your spirit animal. And that was now some people in the room couldn't do it; they just couldn't let go. But for me, I was astonished. I discovered that my spirit animal, I'd always thought of myself as being allied with a cat, but in fact, you can have an animal that guides you, and at the same time, the real helping animal. I found mine was a bull. I couldn't believe it. And yet it made sense in terms of the fact that I am quite strong. At the same time, I'm also bullish in the sense I can't let go when I should do, gets back bang my head against things. And that was quite an extraordinary experience. But the truth is, most people don't think about themselves in that way. We're lucky. This group here are in that kind of direction. But one of the things that troubles me is how to help more people really think about who they are, feel, have, rather than just react to their feelings and act. We say in psychology, acting out. In other words, they have a feeling, they do something, they react to it, rather than thinking about what does that mean? Why am I feeling that? And so for me, the biggest tool, I believe, is about education. And it's about helping people from the earliest years start to think about their health, about loving others, and so on. And it is done a little bit, particularly with the very young. But then it gets lost in the education system. It's another system that drives people into not thinking about the fundamentals, but in fact about getting a skill, getting a job, and so forth, rather than value, treasuring the things if you see small children playing, you can see the spirit's still alive there, but somehow it gets damaged by what happens subsequently. And this we need to change,
Thank you so much, David. Over and over, you remind me, or you underline the reason why you are on this panel. I absolutely believe that we need to mix our medicines. Now, I talk about the magic in ordinary moments, the acronym MOM, that includes synchronicities and patterns and sets of numbers that I see in my day, but the acronym also stands for mixing our medicines. And I believe that this time in our world, our experience, our global experience, we need to mix our medicines, honoring the past and the experiences and wisdoms that are born through us. And I thank you so much for being a part of this, David. And Hope, I'm going to come to you. You have some effective tools and practices that you've found helpful in supporting mental and physical well-being. Can you tell us about them a little bit, please?
Well, sure. First of all, I want to say, it feels like we're all in a similar sandbox playing from maybe different corners, but I so resonate with what everybody said. David, I wanted to address this notion of being fixed. And I think that is baked in at this point. And I agree with you that it's problematic. And if we could reach children, that would be fantastic. And, now there are certain school systems like Montessori and Waldorf and so on and so forth that keep that flame alive. That's where I brought my children, and trying to keep that flame alive exactly as you speak, and not to send them to some couch, although they might have to go there anyway. And, I also want to respond to the echo chamber. I'm so sensitive to that. And we all have come by where we are now through the hard knocks of life. And I think that's what we're here to do. We're here on planet Earth to do the Earth School thing. I think we all agree with that. The different methods for how we get where our spirit, soul, whatever our trajectory had in mind for us to go, how we get there, so many thousands of roads. And so whether it's a traditional way or a combination, mixing our medicine, or shamanic, I've done a lot of shamanic work. I lead people on shamanic journeys. Because I just went and looked at everything. I poked my nose into every hole I could possibly do over the course of my life. What sticks? What sticks for me isn't going to be what sticks for another person. What I've come to, it's nothing brilliant, but I'm pretty solid on the idea that we learn, we change through experience. We can have a lot of ideas, we can have a lot of whatever, but when we have a felt experience like meeting your bull, boom, that opens up a whole realm, right? And you can't shake that experience. Now that's a part of you. And so what I do primarily is offer experiences to people. I am a channel, or do transmissions, whatever words you want to use. That came slowly through time. Embarrassingly, I didn't want to do it in public. Now I do it from a mountaintop last week. So it's grown as my confidence has grown and as I've been more willing to show myself. So I get direct downloads from pretty amazing places. And when I deliver that to people in one of my sessions, it usually, hits them and causes some kind of change that they can go and put into their matrix and go on their way. So that's one thing. And if you had asked me 15 years ago if I'd ever be doing any of this, I would have laughed very hard. But so I have the infinity wave. The thing about the infinity wave is it's really we don't have the time anymore. We used to have time, even when I was growing up. Yeah, you could go off to a mountain in India, or you could go to a cave, you could do something, you could go on a trek, there were lots of opportunities to find yourself. That's kind of what we did in the 70s. And you could stare at your navel for a good long time. We don't have that anymore. So what we need, and what I believe this wave came in to do, was to help to put us into a love and compassion state on a dime, in a moment. When each person learns to just do that, then the way that the collective can work is going to be just elevated, right? And we're going to all boats rise. What I've noticed, and I agree with you also on the power of a group, that is the way forward. And when we speak of the new earth, it is of this partnerships that Vesha was talking about. It is this ability to, ask the questions that Maureen was talking about. And I feel like we should all get a little closer in our sandbox, and maybe start sharing some of these things, because we're very interwoven, well chosen, Shannon. But I'm going to add one last thing, and that is dowsing. And the reason why I mentioned that, and especially with what Bosch is doing, is because not everybody can get into that calm, clear state right away, but they want some indication that something's happening. So I teach dowsing and I encourage people to read the books, teach yourself, whatever, because it's a way to start that connectivity, that conversation with your own intuition, and whatever it is that's guiding you. And it could be a wide variety of things, so that you start to get feedback. Oh, this is working. Therefore, the doubting mind can move out of the way more and more. And it takes a little time, as in any relationship, but it is powerful. And you could, of course, douse for yourself, douse for what's in your highest good, or what you're eating, your sleep pattern, whatever. But you can douse with the natural world, and you can douse with your higher guidance. So it's a big thing, but it's also a practical way to just start that. Oh, I'm not just a little me. I'm connected to a much bigger thing. So.
Thank you so much, Hope. That's amazing. I love how each one of us has respected and drawn in the teachings of the other participants. You are models of good conversation, and I appreciate you so much. And I am aware of the time, because that's kind of my function here, one of my functions here. And so I know that Mary Thorpe is poised and ready to come in, but I do want to give each one of you a moment to talk about what, just a moment, I want you to tell me and our listeners what highlight of our conversation, what hits you as being something that needs to be paid attention to. And I'm going to start with you, Basha, and then go to Maureen. Come on in.
Oh my, weaving together this rich tapestry, very tricky. Yes. What stands out to me is ultimately how interconnected our messages are, as well as how interconnected people, the people that we all seek to serve, we're all of service, and these people who maybe aren't looking to be fixed, and I totally agree with that. It's not about getting fixed. It's really about expanding who we are. So all of can you imagine a world where we all were expanded to not only who we are as humans, but also who we are as being in relationship with the planet, with plants, trees, insects, disease organisms, which is a whole nother topic about health. Uh, 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 Animals, every sort of being with whom we share this planet, and that I think we're all pointing toward a shift in paradigm, a shift toward a kind of unity, a partnership with each other and with the whole planet. Oh gosh, I probably used up my time now.
Thank you so much, Basha. We're going to go to Maureen next, and then to David. Come on in, Maureen.
So much to weave together, and I've always said that each of us have a golden thread that when we weave it together, we can create such a beautiful platform to dance on together as we collaborate and celebrate each other's beautiful gifts. And we all have that to weave together. And I also subscribed to, David's comments that there's nothing to fix. We are already perfect and beautiful. It's about waking up and remembering the truth of who we are. So I kind of subscribe to the elastic band theory, where we're all just tightened up and all that stuff has just bound us up like that. So we just need to cut through that, and woo, here we are. And so I also love Hope's comments about collaboration and how bringing all of our ways together, and Shannon, you with your mixing of medicines, because it's time to bring all of ourselves together because we're part of that oneness in our unique diversity. So that's what I love about IRT. It plays well with others. It doesn't come with any dogma, any beliefs, and it just allows into the clearing of the air, if you will, clearing of the field, so that whatever your medicine, whatever your ways, whatever you choose to interact with, to be more of the truth of who you are, it all works really well together, because the questions of the IRT then allow an open space where everything becomes more efficient. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And David, come on in.
Unmute. Yeah. Of course, I agree what the others say. I think for me, I really liked the mention of Yoda and the thing about unlearning. I mean, the fact is we're oppressed by our technological progress, so-called progress, which does clever things. But what it prevents us from being in touch with is something very much more basic, about being in tune with everything. If you think about how people before technology were felt to be at the mercy of the elements, but at the same time working with them, it's a very different view of the world. At the moment, we have this really ridiculous notion that we control things, and and we must do something about global warming. It's all our fault, and we've got technology. We must do this about carbon. For heaven's sake, rather than thinking, how do we live with these changes, which may be a cycle which have gone for many decades, centuries, millennia, and just be with it and make sense of it. How do we? This is why I think. My wife, for example, says, the only religion I care about is pantheism, that believing in God in everything is a notion, again, of respecting where you are and again, allowing yourself to be small enough to recognize all of this we're just part of something. But for me, that's a kind of health, which I think many people here in the panel would also recognize.
I absolutely agree, David. Thank you so, so much. I appreciate you. And I also appreciate Hope. And Hope, come on in before Mary comes in.
I have very little to add. I really admire and agree with everything that has been said. David, pantheism would be very much in line with Teilhard de Chardin, who believed that there was a God spark in every tiniest little thing, and it just gets bigger as the organism gets bigger. So, and, going back to just responsibility, what Maureen said, it is our responsibility to grow ourselves, first and foremost. Then we ripple that out. Of course, as we grow ourselves, it does affect the world around us. So I guess that's where I'll stop.
Thank you so much, Hope. And now we get to hear from Mary. As a fly on the wall listening to all of this, what have you got to say to us?
Well, it's a really interesting thing because as you've all just recapped what what each of you bring and what each of you have had to say, I go like, well, there's nothing left for me to say.
Oh,
You've just done everything. So then I began looking at this. So I turned 77 this year. And my granddaughter said to me the other day, I didn't know you were 77, Nana. I said, well, how old do you think I am? And she said, 63. She's 8. Anyway, I bring that in because of the wisdom that each of us brings on the planet and the history that I've lived, like many of us have, through, like I learned when I was 31 years old that we were in this paradigm shift from Buckminster Fuller, who said, we are complete with this you or me world, this world of separation. We're now at a time where we can have things work for everyone, moving to a you and me world. Well, I had no idea that this is all the further we would be 45 years later. And yet everything's moving. And what I heard from each of you today was, well, I'll just say one more thing. A couple of summers ago, I was looking at like, how am I going to know? How are we going to know when transformation, when things have shifted on the planet? Like, what is going to bring the critical mass of transformation? So the thing that I heard from each of you with your IRT, Maureen, and with the infinity wave, Hope, those are like quick things that are now available to people that have not been available before now. So those things are here, while at the same time holding the space of the natural world that we are not part of. We are the natural world. When people say return to nature, I go like, well, all you have to do is breathe, that just reminds us the simplicity of the nature that we are part of. And so listening to the trees and remembering ourselves and the history that we have lived through and that we've brought into the planet through our ancestors. We're all here standing on the shoulders of the gifts that our ancestors brought. So integrating all of that information. And David, I particularly appreciate your disruption. That's been my track this lifetime. I'm here to disrupt the status quo and have apologized for it most of my life until I recently learned that, no, that's my gift. So, and I'm also a Taurus, so I don't know that a bull is my shaman, my spirit animal, but man, I appreciate and totally, have learned to have to live with being a bull in this lifetime. So I think what I would say out of the beauty of what has happened out of our being together today, whenever two or more are gathered in the name of the higher spirits of the universe, whatever we say shall be. So I think that that's a good place. Thank you for what each of you brought individually and brought together, and exponentially we have launched into the world one more time. So thank you, each of you.
Thank you,
and thank
Mary.
you, Shannon.
This has been such a delight. And I like that word too, because this is what we're doing, is we are sparkling bright. And when we come together and have the opportunity to share ideas, we shine more brightly than ever. And thank you so, so, so much. What came to me as you were speaking, Mary, is that we have, there Maureen says, absolutely, and I love that. So what came to me is that we have moved from a you or me to a you and me, and now we are moving into the you are me, because we are becoming aware that we are one being. And tomorrow we get to go into the 6th of the 7 sparkling conversations, talking about becoming coherent as one universe, one song, how we bring each one of our notes, our soul notes, into the one song that we are expressing together. And becoming the one that we are. And so I thank you all very much for being a part of this conversation, because until we come into coherence in ourselves, in order to express our own soul note in a coherent and beautiful fashion, rather than thrashing through life, crashing through life, and we're learning to flow. And I love that we have flowed so well together. Thank you so, so much for being a part of my reality and the sparkling conversations. So tomorrow I'm going to suggest to everyone that they come back to the sparkling conversations here at theconversation.cc, who have come into alignment so beautifully with the EarthStock Festival. And we are streaming on Facebook and YouTube and Vimeo and the virtual world that was created by Rachel Tice. And it is all to be found on the EarthStockSummit.com. website. And I look forward to tomorrow when we come back together again with different panelists. But, you know, you guys have been so good. Thank you so much for being a part of this and part of my reality. Thank you. And this is a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye for now. There we go.